In a quiet town, far from big cities, there lived a man named Tom. Tom was not like other people. He spent his days working in a small workshop at the back of his house. His hands were always busy, his mind always thinking of new ideas. Tom was an inventor. He loved to make things that could help people. Some of his inventions worked well, like the time he made a small robot that could clean his house. But others, like the talking shoes, didn't work as planned. Still, Tom never gave up. One day, Tom had a big idea. He wanted to create something that no one had ever made before. What if I could make a machine that sees the future, he thought. I could help people avoid problems before they happen. Tom spent many days and nights thinking about his idea. He drew pictures, wrote notes, and started building. It wasn't easy. He had to find the right parts, and sometimes things didn't go as planned. But Tom believed in his idea. He worked harder than ever before. Weeks passed. The machine slowly took shape. It was small, about the size of a toaster. It had a glass screen on the front, and wires ran from the top to the bottom. Tom called it the future machine. When it was ready, Tom was excited, but he also felt nervous. What if it didn't work? What if it showed something bad? On a quiet morning, Tom decided to test the machine. He sat at his desk, placed the machine in front of him, and took a deep breath. His hands shook as he pressed the button. The screen lit up, glowing softly. At first, nothing happened. Tom waited, watching the screen. Then, slowly, an image began to form. It was blurry at first, but then it became clear. Tom saw himself walking down the street, smiling. The sun was shining, and everything looked normal. He felt relieved. The future looked good. But then, the image changed. Tom was still walking, but now, something was different. He stopped and looked around. The sky darkened, and the wind started to blow hard. Tom saw a tall building in the distance, and then, suddenly, it collapsed. He heard a loud crash. People screamed and ran in all directions. Tom's heart raced. "Is this really going to happen?" he whispered. He turned off the machine and sat back in his chair, thinking about what he had seen. Could the future be changed? Could he stop the building from falling? Tom decided to act. He grabbed his coat and ran out of the house. He didn't know where the building was, but he knew he had to find it. He ran through the streets, searching for the tall building he saw in the future. After hours of running, Tom found it. It was just like in the machine, tall, with shiny windows. People were walking in and out, not knowing that danger was coming. Tom stood there, trying to figure out what to do. Should he tell someone? Would they believe him? Just as Tom was about to walk inside, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around to see a man in a black suit. The man looked serious, almost angry. "You shouldn't be here," the man said in a deep voice. Tom was confused. "What do you mean?" "I have to warn them." The man shook his head. "No, you don't understand. The future you saw, it's not what you think." Tom didn't know what to say. How did this man know about the future machine? And what did he mean by not what you think? Before Tom could ask, the man turned and walked away, leaving Tom standing in front of the building, unsure of what to do next. Tom stood there, staring at the building and thinking about the strange man. The words, "It's not what you think," echoed in his head. But what could the man mean? Tom saw the future in the machine. He knew the building would fall, and he felt that he had to do something. But now, doubt crept into his mind. Should he still try to stop it? Tom took a deep breath and decided to trust himself. He couldn't just walk away. People's lives were at risk. He ran inside the building, pushing past the crowds of people coming and going. The building was tall, with a big lobby full of plants and bright lights. Tom looked around, searching for someone who would listen. He found a security guard standing by the elevators. The guard was a tall man, wearing a blue uniform and holding a radio in his hand. Tom hurried over to him, his heart racing. "Excuse me, sir," Tom said, his voice shaking. "Something terrible is going to happen. I need to speak to someone in charge." The guard looked at Tom with raised eyebrows. "What's the problem?" he asked calmly. Tom wasn't sure how to explain. "The building, it's not safe. It's going to collapse soon. You need to get everyone out of here." The guard frowned, looking at Tom as if he didn't believe him. "Are you sure? We've had no reports of anything like that." "I know it sounds crazy," Tom said quickly. "But please, you have to believe me. I saw it, there's not much time." Before the guard could respond, a woman in a business suit approached them. She had sharp eyes and looked like someone in charge. "Is there a problem?" she asked the guard, then turned to Tom. "What's this about a collapse?" Tom explained again, as clearly as he could. But as he spoke, he saw the same look on her face, doubt. She didn't believe him either. "Look," she said after a moment, "I understand you're concerned, but we follow strict safety regulations here. The building has been checked many times. Nothing is going to collapse." "But I saw it," Tom insisted, his voice rising. "I saw the future." The woman sighed and glanced at the guard. "If you don't calm down, we'll have to ask you to leave," she said firmly. "We can't just evacuate the building on your word." Tom's stomach dropped. He felt helpless. He wanted to scream, to make them listen, but he realized it was no use. Without proof, no one would take him seriously. He was just an inventor, who would believe a story about seeing the future? Feeling defeated, Tom turned and left the building. He walked slowly down the street, his mind racing. What should he do now? He had warned them, but they didn't believe him. Was there another way to stop this? He thought about the machine again. Maybe it could show him something more, something that would help him. As he made his way back to his house, Tom saw the man in the black suit again. This time, the man was standing by a lamppost, watching him. Tom's heart skipped a beat. He hurried over. "You again?" Tom said. "You know something, don't you? What's really going on?" The man didn't smile or frown. He just stared at Tom with those cold, serious eyes. "I told you before," the man said quietly, "the future isn't what you think. You saw something, yes, but the future isn't always fixed." Tom frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "I saw the building fall." "That has to happen, doesn't it?" The man shook his head. "The future you saw is only one possibility. There are many futures. What you did today, going to the building and warning people, that could change things. Or it might not." Tom stared at the man, feeling even more lost. "So, nothing I do matters?" "Everything you do matters," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "But you need to understand something important. The machine you made doesn't just see the future. It changes it." Tom's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. Every time you use the machine, you change something. Maybe small, maybe big. But it's not just a window to the future. It's a tool that can alter it. That's why you have to be careful. Tom's mind raced with questions. If the machine could change the future, what else could it do? Had he already made things worse by trying to help? He didn't know what to think anymore. I need to stop the machine, Tom whispered, fear creeping into his voice. I didn't know. The man nodded slowly. You can try. But remember, the future is always moving. You might stop one thing, but another will take its place. Tom stood there, feeling overwhelmed. He didn't want this. He just wanted to help people, not change the world in ways he couldn't understand. Who are you? Tom asked suddenly. How do you know all this? The man's face remained expressionless. I'm someone who understands how dangerous your machine is. That's all you need to know. With that, the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Tom felt cold. He realized now that his invention had more power than he ever imagined. He had to act fast. He needed to destroy the machine before it could cause more harm. But first, he had to see what the future held one last time. Racing back to his workshop, Tom sat down at his desk, staring at the machine. His hand hovered over the button. Should he press it again? Could he handle what it might show him this time? With a deep breath, he pressed the button. The screen flickered to life, and once again, an image formed. But this time, it wasn't the building. It was Tom, standing in his workshop, just like he was now. And behind him, the man in the black suit. But something was different. The man wasn't just watching this time. He was reaching for the machine. The screen went black. Tom's heart pounded. Was the man coming for the machine? Or was this just another possible future? He didn't know, but one thing was clear, his invention had brought more danger than he ever expected. And now, he wasn't sure if he could stop it. Tom sat frozen in his workshop, his eyes still fixed on the dark screen of the future machine. His mind raced with fear and confusion. The image he had just seen, of the man in the black suit reaching for the machine, filled him with dread. Was this really going to happen? And if so, what could he do to stop it? He stood up quickly, looking around the room. Every shadow seemed more threatening now, every sound more dangerous. Tom's heart raced as he tried to think. Should he hide the machine? Destroy it? Run? Suddenly, he heard a noise outside. His heart leaped. It was the sound of footsteps, slow, steady, coming closer to the workshop door. Tom swallowed hard, his hands trembling. He had to act fast. Without thinking, Tom grabbed a heavy cloth from his workbench and threw it over the future machine, hiding it from view. He took a few steps back and stared at the door, waiting, his breath shallow. The footsteps stopped just outside. Then, a knock. It was soft, but deliberate. Tom didn't move. His entire body felt tense, like a spring ready to snap. Another knock followed, louder this time. Tom, a voice called from the other side of the door. It was the man in the black suit. Tom's chest tightened. How had the man found him so quickly? What did he want? Tom, the voice said again, calm but firm. You need to let me in. We need to talk. Tom shook his head, even though the man couldn't see him. Go away, he shouted, his voice shaking. You can't have the machine. I won't let you. There was silence on the other side. Then, the man spoke again. I'm not here to take the machine, Tom. But if you keep using it, you'll only make things worse. You need to stop now, before it's too late. Tom's mind raced. Could he trust this man? Everything he had seen suggested the opposite. The future, the warnings, it all pointed to danger. I don't believe you. Tom yelled. You're just trying to control the future, aren't you? You don't want me to know what's coming. The door creaked as if the man leaned against it. No, Tom. I'm trying to stop you from creating a future you can't control. You think the machine is just showing you what's going to happen, but every time you use it, you change something. You make new possibilities, ones that didn't exist before. Tom hesitated, his mind spinning. The man's words echoed what he had already feared. But he still didn't know if he could trust him. What do you want me to do? Tom asked, his voice quieter now, almost desperate. Destroy it, the man said. It's the only way. Tom looked at the machine under the cloth. He had worked so hard to build it, to make something that could help people. But now, it was clear that it was more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The future wasn't meant to be seen, let alone changed. But could he really destroy his greatest invention? Tom took a step toward the machine, his hand reaching for the cloth. He hesitated. Then, suddenly, the door burst open. The man in the black suit stood in the doorway, his face calm but his eyes sharp. He stepped into the workshop, his gaze fixed on the machine. Get away from it. Tom shouted, backing away, his hands raised defensively. The man didn't stop. He walked slowly toward the machine, his movements controlled, as if he knew exactly what was going to happen next. I told you, Tom, the man said, his voice low and steady. The future you saw is only one possibility. But if you keep using that machine, you'll create something even worse. Tom's heart pounded in his chest. What do you mean? What could be worse than a building collapsing? The man stopped just a few feet from Tom. The collapse you saw? It was just a warning. A sign of the chaos that comes when you try to play with time. The more you use the machine, the more unstable the future becomes. You think you're seeing what will happen, but really, you're shaping it in ways you can't understand. Tom's mind reeled. All this time, he thought he was trying to help, trying to prevent disaster. But now, it seemed like he had been causing it instead. I didn't know, Tom whispered, his eyes wide with fear. I didn't mean to. I know, the man said, his voice softer now. But it's not too late to fix it. You can still stop the machine before it creates a future that no one can escape. Tom looked at the machine again, his invention, the thing he had poured all his hopes and dreams into. Destroying it felt like losing a part of himself. But he knew now that it had to be done. With shaking hands, Tom reached under the cloth and pulled the machine into view. It was quiet, sitting there on the table, the glass screen dark. He stared at it for a long moment, then turned to the man. How do I destroy it? Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man stepped closer and handed Tom a small metal tool from his pocket. This will shut down the power source. It'll stop the machine from ever working again. Tom took the tool, feeling its weight in his hand. His fingers shook as he bent over the machine, searching for the right spot. After a moment, he found it, a small panel on the side. He unscrewed it, revealing the delicate inner workings of the device. He hesitated, his hand trembling. Could he really do this? Go ahead, the man said quietly. It's the only way to fix what's been broken. Tom closed his eyes and inserted the tool into the machine. There was a soft click, and then, all at once, the machine went completely dark. The faint hum that had always come from it stopped. It was over. Tom stepped back, feeling a wave of relief and sadness wash over him. The machine, his greatest invention, was no more. The man in the black suit nodded. "You did the right thing." Tom sat down heavily in his chair, his mind spinning. "What now?" he asked, feeling lost. The man turned toward the door. "Now, the future will unfold as it's meant to. No more interference. No more changes." Tom watched as the man walked to the door, his figure fading into the shadows. Before he left, the man looked back one last time. "Remember, Tom. Some things are not meant to be seen." And with that, he was gone. Tom sat there in the quiet workshop, the broken machine in front of him. He felt a strange mix of emotions, regret, relief, and uncertainty. He had tried to change the future, but in the end, he had learned that the future was not something to be controlled. For the first time in weeks, Tom felt a sense of peace. The future would come, and whatever it held, he would face it without fear. The machine was gone, and with it, the burden of knowing too much. The end.